The whole idea behind social proof is it's a mechanism that lets you borrow the credibility of a person or entity that is more established than you to grow. But what if you're a beginner and you don't have any? Now, I scaled 2 agencies to over $160K a month in combined revenue. I also spoke on stage with Alex Hormozi and Sam Evans and other business people, including a mention, though not by name, on the Diary of a CEO podcast just a couple months ago.
The winner of the last school games, he got to like 300 and something thousand a month. He started 16 months ago making videos about AI.
What this means is I now have social proof, and it lets me basically make money by being popular, which is insane. But I did not always. And so in this video, what I want to do is I want to show you more than a dozen very boots on the ground ways to get some yourself, even if you're a total nobody, you've never made any money in business before. Here's how I'm planning on structuring this. I'm going to start by giving you guys an example of the social proof you would have if you employed this tactic. It's usually a cool sounding one-liner. Then I'm going to give you guys the actual tactic itself, including examples and demonstrations of how I have done this in the past. A lot of these tactics are going to be free. Some of them will cost you money, but then deliver a very disproportionate reward relative to the money put in. But obviously, if something is free, I'm going to do my best to tell you, and that's what I'm starting with. So our first piece of social proof is going to be very big. If you do this, it will enable you to say things like, hey, I'm a Microsoft Cloud partner. I actually work with Microsoft under their Cloud partner designation. Now, you can do this even if you are a total nobody, you've never earned $1 in your life, you don't even know what the hell the word business means. What you do is you sign up to a partnership or creator program with the brands that are big in your target industry. I obviously used Microsoft earlier, but for example, a lot of you guys probably know about N8N, right? It's a no-code platform. It's raised tens of millions of dollars, obviously very in demand right now. Well, did you know that you can just sign up to their website under the creator designation? And if you do this, they will literally give you a profile on an n8n.io hosted domain. So I've done it, and now I have pretty awesome N8N social proof. So for instance, I can actually say, hey, I build templates for N8N under their creator program. They put me on their website along with a bunch of workflows, and regular users download me all the time. My templates have been downloaded over 5,000 times. What you end up with is you end up with something like this, which, as you guys could see, is on the n8n.io domain. And I mean, similar examples exist across the stack. I'll show you one for Notion later, but this is pretty legit, right? If you have something like this that shows how many times your stuff has been downloaded, and, one of my workflows has been downloaded over 7,000 times, I think you guys could see how this would buy you legitimacy. So how do you actually go about and do it? You literally just type N8N. Oh, not Cyrillic. Let's not do that. N8N creator sign up. Go down to verified N8N automation workflows creators, at least as of the time of this recording. It'll probably be somewhere else if you're watching this really far in the future. And then just scroll down to the bottom to where it says become a verified creator. Okay. So if you click this join now badge, what are they going to ask for? Some very simple stuff: username, email address, maybe some examples of workflows you guys have done in the past. You use mine, use other people's, whatever it is. Hopefully you guys are seeing, you guys could put something together that looks very, very legitimate in a very short period of time. And if somebody is considering hiring you for some sort of no-code automation service, right, that makes you appear significantly more credible. It's going to significantly improve your conversion rate, your probability of any sort of sales engagement, because you are now borrowing credibility from that brand over to yourself. If you use the term Microsoft Cloud Partner, what you are doing is you're borrowing the credibility from Microsoft, which is obviously a very credible organization, despite the fact that you don't have any. So you could use hacks like this across the board. My recommendation is don't just do a specific platform, like I just showed you how to do one, but look to see all of the platforms in your target industry that would call you or make you more credible. Okay, our second piece of social proof will let you say stuff like, I was featured in Bloomberg, which is obviously huge. So how do you do that? Well, it is called a paid newswire. So I actually used to own a PR agency that worked with some massive names. We're talking billion-dollar companies, governments, literal space agencies. And a very common way that we bought credibility for people that came to us with absolutely nothing is we paid for a service called an EIN newswire, okay, to go and then blast a story, a press release basically, across a bunch of media back channels on publications like Bloomberg and Yahoo News and Digital Journal and a couple of other ones. And in general, this process usually costs a few $100s. And at the end of it, you guys are going to get a list of major publications and logos that you guys can literally add to your website to say something like, hey, we've been featured in Bloomberg, Yahoo Finance, and so on and so forth. So let me give you guys a quick example. This over here is 1 second copy. And I started this with very little social proof. It now has social proof and it can stand on its own. But for a while there, these 5 logos were very important to us and very big portions of the reason why people thought we were credible. These are the direct result of a newswire. Newswire that I blasted out to Digital Journal, Bloomberg, Fox News Media, Yahoo Finance, and Associated Press. That cost me a grand total of $300. So in this case, what we did is we basically took actual capital and then we tried to, we basically exchanged it, currency converted it for some form of reputational capital. And it's very, very easy and very straightforward to do. Anybody here could do this on their own as well. There are a variety of providers that do this sort of thing. What I personally did is I just went on Fiverr and I typed in newswire, press release, words like that until I found ones that, had contacts and connections with logos that I was particularly interested in. You guys can probably find it way cheaper than $300. Give it a go. The third piece of social proof is going to let you say stuff like, I'm Google certified, or I was certified by HubSpot. And this is pretty straightforward. These big companies like Google and HubSpot and Microsoft usually have certification flows. A lot of these certification programs are also completely free. They don't cost you a cent. What you do is you take one or more of these certifications, you become certified in whatever the platform is, and then you can just say stuff like, hey, I'm now Google certified. And in doing so, you will transfer some of the credibility of Google over to you. Example, HubSpot inbound marketing certification. You just go to academy.hubspot.com/courses/inbound. Free certification course right over here. Might take you a couple hours. And at the end of it, you will have a nice, sexy looking badge that you can both add to your website, add to any profile you want. In this case, this is my Upwork profile, which is just under $500,000 in earnings. You guys could add this anywhere. And, adding it is one thing. But actually being able to say stuff like, hey, I am Google certified or HubSpot certified is really the main thing. You just want to have leverage in sales conversations. You want to be able to drop stuff like that in general. The fourth piece of social proof is going to let you say stuff like, I was published in Popular Mechanics for my thoughts on aging. Now, journalists often need professionals in a subject to use as quotes to make their articles sound more credible. And there are actually services out there that journalists will connect with that allow them to, get quotes very easily from people like that. And I have a couple here that I'm going to talk about. One is Quoted, another one is Haro. So the whole idea is if you have any sort of bootstrap social proof using any of the four methods that we talked about, if you've gotten some certifications now, or if you're like an end-to-end creator or a Microsoft Cloud partner, and you know something about what a journalist is asking for, you could sign up to any of these platforms and literally just scroll top to bottom through the latest issues or requests. If you have any skill or knowledge in that subject, you just leave a brief quote. A journalist will ask you, so what are your thoughts on this? I'm looking for experts that know about X, Y, and Z. You just say, oh, I believe X, Y, and Z. And a surprising amount of the time, assuming your quote is good, 3 to 4 weeks later, you will literally find your name in an article somewhere, which will allow you to have crazy, crazy social proof that you probably never thought was ever going to be possible. So this is an article that I was published in on a very, very big publication called Popular Mechanics. And as you can see, I literally have my first and last name as like the first 2 words of this piece. We scroll down a little bit. You can't see this because you have to pay money for the publication, but then this is me in some park somewhere. They actually sent out a photographer for me. Now, the specific platforms that I'm talking about here, one is called Quoted. This is pretty big. Essentially, the way that it works is it's just like a big database where every day somebody will go top to bottom and just say like, hey, I'm looking for an expert that knows, knows about logging. If you know about logging, just leave me a quote that answers these questions. And then there's also another platform out there called Haro, or Help a Reporter Out, which is just massive. And this is something, actually one of the very first systems that I built on YouTube, where basically you enter your email address and then several times a day, you receive emails from journalists saying stuff like, hey, is anybody here an expert on X, Y, and Z subject? Now, the actual emails itself look something like this. You'll have an index where they say, hey, I'm looking for a dentist or orthodontist. Do doctors work for love or for money? Hey, I'm looking for people to help me prepare loan applications. I'm looking for financial planners. I'm looking for quotes from college or student staff about their mental health. Obviously, it depends. And, what I like about them is they break things down into niches. So if you just like stay with your ear on the ground, or maybe if you build some sort of automated system that watches this, then when something comes in that, fits your specifications, it's very easy for you just to like jump in, drop a quick quote, and then a few weeks later get published in a major mainstream media publication. The fifth piece of social proof lets you have verified check marks next to your name on social media platforms like Instagram and X. This isn't really much a hack as much as it's just buying a piece of verification. But the reason why it works is because some people out there still associate having a check mark, blue check or whatever, with literally being a celebrity. Because that is how these platforms, in case you didn't know, used to manage their verifications. If you had like several 100,000 followers, they would be like, hey, do you want to verify your identity? We'll give you a check mark. It'll make you stand out more. So what that means is nowadays you just buy it for $5 to $10. If you're running a social media profile, you significantly improve your click-through rate and your engagement rate, especially on DMs, simply by paying $5 to $10 per month per social media profile. This is my own social media profile right here, Nick_Sarav. As you can see, I am pretty big. We have 340K followers now, but that little blue check mark does a lot, especially when you're doing some sort of like outbound sales. Anecdotally, anytime I have anybody in my DMs that is not blue checked, probability of me clicking on them as opposed to me clicking on somebody with a blue check is like probably 1/10. So do with that what you will. The sixth piece of social proof lets you say stuff like, hey, I'm actually listed on Notion's website. So in short, with the strategy, your goal, like our very first tip, was to get listed in the vendor directory for a service. So in our case, at the beginning, it was in a creator directory. It's a little bit different. A vendor directory is somebody typically that provides solutions using this platform. And the way that these big SaaS companies work is they are incentivized to not only like build the SaaS, but then create some sort of marketplace or network where very proficient providers of the service can be listed and exchange, Notion or whatever company gets a little bit of fee. So yeah, Notion's a really good example of that. They have a hire a Notion solutions partner page right over here. And as you can see, if you just scroll down, you literally have like real people that get to leverage the actual traffic of Notion.so. It's obviously a massive, massive SaaS company. And then, let's say you're looking for somebody that speaks Czech to help you with your Notion stuff. You can actually just click on this and you can actually contact, Dala over here. Hopefully I'm not absolutely butchering your name. But, there's a place for a portfolio, a place for them to put videos, clients. It's basically like a mini Upwork or a mini Fiverr if you guys ever use that. And so it's not just Notion that has this. There's like 20, 30 major SaaS platforms at the top of my head that do. Just type in SaaS plus solutions provider or SaaS plus vendor list or something of that nature, and you will find a big chunk of them. The seventh piece of social proof is pretty crazy, but it will let you say, I'm an Amazon bestseller. So to make a long story short, what you do here is you write and then you self-publish a short, maybe 50-page book on Amazon. I've actually done this, and I'll show you that in a second. Then you get 30 or 40 people in the span of about maybe 2 or 3 hours to just purchase, download the book, and then rank it up based off whatever voting system Amazon makes available to you. The way that Amazon works is you basically have a bunch of different categories. And within these categories, it's actually a lot easier to become a bestseller in, a specific category, especially a not very popular one than you probably think. The reason why is because they break it down so granularly, I suppose, that the probability of you releasing in a day and then competing with other people that get more than like 10 or 20 or 30 downloads in an hour is very, very low. And then the way that they do their rankings, I think it resets every couple hours. So this is something that I published on my Facebook forever ago. And basically what I did, and I used to go by a different surname just because I didn't think anybody could pronounce my name. That's the story for another time. But basically what I did is I created this short little book, and it was like 30 or 40 pages, and it was basically, hey, how to sell stuff, how to sell products or services the right way. And, I can't really speak to the value of the content that is in this book. Fortunately, this was a much younger and more naive me. But I set it on Kindle, self-publish it using their Kindle platform, and then I set it for $3.98. And then I just got like 10 or 15 of my friends to buy it in the span of an hour. Now, the way that Amazon works is they evaluated, the bestseller status or whatever on, an hour or by hour basis, basically 1 or 2 hours. And so for a brief 2 hours, I was actually the number one bestseller, from my understanding, in the world, or maybe just Canada. I'm not entirely sure, but I was the number one bestseller in marketing. So think about that. Obviously, the degree to which you can claim stuff like this is pretty hacky, because when you say I'm the number one bestseller in the world, people are probably going to be like, oh my god, like Atomic Habits? No way. But that is pretty crazy social proof, no? And you can actually do it yourself for less than $30, because that's about how much money it cost me to do everything that I needed to do. Signed up for like a Canva Pro subscription, created myself a little, book binding cover thing digitally. Very, very straightforward. The eighth piece of social proof will let you say things like, hey, our company was at XYZ really big conference. Now, there's no real magic here, and you guys probably already know what I'm going to say. But if you want to use the strategy, all you have to do is you have to buy or rent a booth at a conference. My recommendation would be to get the cheapest booths possible based on whatever the hierarchy of booths are. They usually do square footage. And the only real important thing for you is to be able to say, hey, we were at XYZ conference alongside or right across from Microsoft, NVIDIA, Intel, like all these big businesses. And the idea is you are basically borrowing or loaning the credibility of the conference and then being able to say in the same breath, we were across from Microsoft or across from NVIDIA or so on and so forth. So what do I mean by conference? This is an example of a conference that I went to, actually. It was hosted in Vancouver just about a month and a half ago. And I was lucky enough that they extended me like a free invite. Presumably they do a certain number of media passes. And when they see YouTube channels that are as big as mine, they're like, hey, do you want to come in and record us a video about it? They didn't actually ask me to record a video. So I just said, yeah, I'll come in. And then I just didn't record the video. But very, very cool stuff. And, there's a lot of money and whatnot there. And, I saw a lot of like small to mid-sized startups there. I saw like a lot of ones that probably had less than $1 million in funding. But because they were put in the exact same place in the exact same room as, NVIDIA, Dell, Intel, like these really, really big guys who tend to just come to these conferences by default for a number of reasons, one of which being business write-offs, but also just to ensure brand awareness and stuff like that in the space. They got a ton of credibility. And this is something that you guys can do too. Booths here, I believe, started at about $1,000 or so, which probably seems out of reach for a lot of people here, but it's definitely something to consider if you want to get into physical trades conferences and so on and so forth. The next piece of social proof will let you say things like, hey, we were featured in XYZ big platform publication. And basically, this is different from what I talked about earlier with Popular Mechanics, but you can pay a small fee to be featured in publications from newsletter providers like Medium. So for instance, when I was writing, I would commonly go and get published on a Medium publication called The Startup. Medium is just a service where you could blog. That had many hundreds of thousands of users. And, The actual reach was nowhere near as important as me just being able to say, we've been published on The Startup, 5 million readers, this, that, over and over and over again. The whole idea here is it's a big sounding publication, so you get to leverage this in future sales conversations. You get to leverage this in, situations like Quoted and Haro and whatnot. An example, this is my Medium profile from way back in the day before most people knew who the heck I was. So I had about 2,000 followers. This was not the thing that was important to me. What was important to me was the fact that I got published in platforms like Geek Culture. If I scroll down here, probably have a couple that are in The Startup as well, unless they changed them. They might have changed them. Oh yeah, The Startup, right? What is beneficial or valuable about this? Well, you could say, hey, I'm published in a publication that has direct distribution to 33,000 readers, or in this case, 856,000 followers, under 1 million. And so, when you get published in 5 or 10 or 15 of these, as a writer, at least in my case, because that's how I started blogging, it's a lot easier for me to go to another publication and say, hey, how's it going? I've already been published in insert big name here, insert big name here, insert big name here. I'd like to be published here too. What are your publishing terms? Sometimes they take money. Sometimes they just take that credibility. Either case, a lot easier for you to make something happen. And then that last piece of social proof just lets you say stuff like, hey, we're part of the NYU Alumni Association, or our staff members went to NYU. Now, it's not a massive piece of social proof, but basically a lot of people don't realize the colleges and the universities they go to does give them some sort of alumni association a lot of the time. And the way that it works is if you or somebody else in your team went to that university, it's either free or it's like a very small fee, and then you become part of the association. And the whole idea, and there's really not that big of an idea here, but the whole idea is that you just get access to the Alumni Association logo. And a lot of the time, the Alumni Association logo looks really similar to, the actual university logo. So a quick example here, this is the NYU Alumni Association. If you guys have been to NYU, not just this specific NYU, but literally any NYU university, or, if any staff member in your team or any, team member contract you consult with or whatever has, then you can join this alumni association. Then you could say members of our team have been trained at the best universities in the world or something. Then you can stick that little sticker on there. So not a massive piece of social proof. And, a lot of the time, anecdotally, I find that like business and academia sort of butt heads, and very good business owners look at academics and go like, what the hell do you know? And then academics look at business owners and go like, what the hell do you know? But it's a reasonable and for the most part, free way to bridge that gap. All right, I really hope you guys appreciated this relatively hacky, but hopefully very pragmatic way to buy yourself more social proof, regardless of the situation and regardless of where you guys are in your career. If you guys like this sort of stuff, definitely check out Maker School. It's my day-by-day accountability program that takes you from a total beginner to somebody that has signed a paying client for AI consulting services. We do all this for you in 90 days, and assuming that you spend all 90 days doing the steps and you don't achieve that result, I will actually pay you all of your money back. That's part of our full guarantee. This is a follow-up to my last video on different ways to build social proof if you're a complete beginner. And I also touch on a couple of very, very advanced tactics over there. So if you guys want more, definitely check that out. Aside from that, thank you guys very much for watching. As per usual, if you haven't subscribed, do me a big solid and do so. Got a bunch more value coming at you pretty soon. Have a lovely rest of the day.